bright future. Every student matters.
Hello my dear students. Today we will be taking up this new poem from your English textbook. The name of the poem is Vocation. Do you know the meaning of vocation? Well, vocation means profession, right? So let's read the snippet, what it tells about the poem. On your way to school or market, you see many people at work. In pairs, discuss what you have noticed. Then read this poem. You may read it aloud with a partner if you like. Let us read what the poem is about. But before that, it is asked, on your way to school or market, you see many people at work. When we go to the market or we go to school or for that matter anywhere, we see a lot of people working on the roads, working in the buildings, or just, working in the shops. So we have to make a note of what all people we see, what all work they do. Let us read the poem. When the gong sounds 10 in the morning and I walk to school by our lane, every day I meet the hawker crying, "Bangles, crystal bangles." There is nothing to hurry him on. There is no road he must take, no place he must go to, no time when he must come home. I wish I were a hawker, spending my day in the road crying, "Bangles, crystal bangles." When at 4 in the afternoon I come back from the school, I can see through the gate of that house the gardener digging the ground. He does what he likes with his spade. He soils his clothes with dust. Nobody takes him to task if he gets baked in the sun or gets wet. I wish I were a gardener digging away at the garden with nobody to stop me from digging. Just as it gets dark in the evening and my mother sends me to bed, I can see through my open window the watchman walking up and down. The lane is dark and lonely, and the street lamps stand like a giant with one red eye in its head. The watchman swings his lantern and walks with his shadow at his side and never once goes to bed in his life. I wish I were a watchman, walking the street all night, chasing the shadows with my lantern. This poem is written by the great Rabindranath Tagore. Let's read the poem verse by verse. When the gong sounds 10 in the morning and I walk to school by our lane, every day I meet the hawker crying, "Bangles, crystal bangles." So here in this poem, the poet is trying to tell that when in the morning it is 10 o'clock, the gong sounds 10 in the morning. That means when the time is 10 o'clock. Do you know what is a gong, by the way? A gong is like this. I think you must have seen somewhere. It is like this, and there is one handle kind of a thing which strikes it. It makes sound. It's a big, made up of brass probably at times, or iron at times. So gong is of this shape, right? So when the gong, it makes sounds at 10 in the morning. I walk to school by our lane. I go to school, I cross my lane and I go to school. Every day I meet the hawker crying, "Bangles, crystal bangles." And on my way, every day, every morning, I meet the hawker who's crying, as in selling, "Bangles, crystal bangles." He is selling bangles, and these bangles are of different colors maybe, and they are made up of crystals. So basically, what is happening here? The poet is trying to explain his routine, what he follows, what kind of people he meets, what routine he follows from morning, from till afternoon, and then in the evening, and then in the night, and what happens, which all people he meets on his way, and how he wishes to be one of them, and probably to be a hawker or to be a gardener. That we'll read further in the poem. There is nothing to hurry him. He is just not in hurry. There is no road he must take. There is no particular way or a particular destination he has to go to. No place he must go to. There is no particular road he has to take, or there is no particular area where he has to go. No time when he must come home. There is no time that is fixed for him to come home. He can just come home whenever he wishes to. I wish I were a hawker, spending my day in the road, crying, "Bangles, crystal bangles." This little boy, he feels, he wishes if he could be a hawker. When he could be spending his day in the road selling the bangles, because there is no hurry. The hawker is never in hurry. He can take any road he wishes to. He can go to any place he wishes to. There is no fixed time that he has to come home. There is no hurry. So the little boy is wishing, I wish I was a hawker. When at 4 in the afternoon I come back from the school, I can see through the gate of that house the gardener digging the ground. So when in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, when the little boy is coming back from the school, he sees through the gate of a house, from the gate of the house he peeps, and what does he see? He sees the gardener digging the ground. What does a gardener do? The gardener is gardening, he is planting, he is digging the ground. So he sees that the gardener is digging the ground. He does what he likes. With his spade, he soils his clothes with dust. Nobody takes him to task if he gets baked in sun or gets wet. The gardener, he does anything, whatever he likes. He is digging the ground with his spade. Spade is an instrument with which you just dig in the ground. So he does what he likes. He is digging the ground with his spade. He soils his clothes. While digging the ground, the mud, the dust is coming on his clothes. His clothes are getting soiled with dust. Nobody takes him to task. What does takes him to task means? It means nobody punishes him. Nobody scolds him. Even if he is soiling his clothes, nobody is going to scold him. Even if he gets baked in the sun or gets wet, if he gets wet in the rain, or if he gets baked in the afternoon sun when it is so hot and sunny, he is getting baked. Baked doesn't, he's getting tanned or is getting sweaty. Nobody is gonna punish him for the same. I wish I were a gardener, digging away at the garden with nobody to stop me from digging. The little boy wishes that he would be a gardener. Why? Because nobody would stop him from digging. If now he digs the ground, his mother would scold him for making a mess, for soiling his clothes, or probably getting wet in the rain, or probably getting sweaty in the sun. But if he would have been a gardener, nobody would have stopped him from digging the ground. Just as it gets dark in the evening and my mother sends me to bed, I can see through my open window the watchman walking up and down. So when he is almost on his bed, it gets dark in the evening, his mother sends him to bed, he sees through his open window in the room where he sleeps. From the open window of that room, he peeps out, and what does he see? He sees a watchman walking up and down. What does a watchman do? A watchman keeps a watch on the vicinity of the area he is being deputed at. So the watchman is walking up and down the streets, keeping a watch on the area. The lane is dark and lonely. It is night. The lane is dark and lonely. There is nobody in the lane at that moment. It is dark in the night. And the street lamp stands like a giant with one red eye in its head. When there is nobody in the street, it is all dark. Just the street lamps stand like a giant. The street lamps, the street lights which are there in the sides of the lanes, they look like a giant. They stand like a giant with one red eye in its head. Why? Because there's a bulb. There's a bulb in the street lamp. It looks like it's a red eye of a giant. The watchman swings his lantern and walks with his shadow at his side. The watchman is holding a lantern and he is just swinging it and walking on the lanes, and he is walking with his shadow. Why is the shadow? Because when there is a small lantern and the lantern's light is stopped by an object, that object is the man himself, his shadow is coming on the street. So the watchman is swinging his lantern and walking with his shadow, and never once goes to bed in his life. It looks like when everybody sleeps in the night, this fellow, this watchman, he goes to bed never in his life. I wish I were a watchman, walking the street all night, chasing the shadows with my lantern. Seeing the watchman, the little man wishes, I wish I were a watchman. And why does he wish so? Because he would have walked the streets all night, chasing the shadows with my lantern. He would have been free to walk the lanes with his lantern and chasing the shadows in the nights. But he cannot go in the night now because he's a young boy. So he wishes he could have been a watchman. What have we learned from the poem? That the little boy's imaginations are so strong and so vivid. He wanted to become a hawker. He wanted to become a gardener. He wanted to become a watchman. What do you all think? What do you want to become? If you see such people in your way to school or on your way to market, do you think you want to become any of these? Well, you can discuss this with your parents or your friends. Coming to the exercise, first is working with the poem. Your partner and you may now be able to answer these questions. They are questions and answers. First is, who is the speaker in the poem? Who are the people the speaker meets? What are they doing? Who is the speaker in the poem? I'll just write the answer for you. The speaker in this poem is a school-going child. Second part, who are the people the speaker meets? Every day he happens to meet the hawker selling bangles, the gardener digging the ground, and the watchman walking the streets with his lantern. What are they doing? We have already mentioned what each person was doing. Part 2. What wishes does the child in the poem make? Why does the child want to be a hawker, a gardener, or a watchman? Pick out the lines in each stanza which tells us this. Now here we have to explain what the child wishes to be. Why does he want to be a hawker, a gardener, or a watchman? And we have to pick up the lines from the poem, from that stanza, and write them here. So I'll quickly give the answer to you. The little child is innocent. He watches the people keenly around him. He is sick of checks on his movement, and so he wants to enjoy the same freedom as the hawker, the gardener, and the watchman. They do what they like. So this is the first part, the answer for the first part. Now we have to pick up the lines. The child says, first, I wish I were a hawker spending my day in the road. So this is the first line. When he tells about the hawker, how he wishes to be a hawker. The second one, he says, I wish I were a gardener digging away at the garden. Right? And the third line, I'll write down the third line on the top here. I am marking a star here and marking a star here. So you understand that this is the third point for part number 2. So the third point is, I wish I were a watchman walking the street all night. Right? So this is answer number 2. Coming to part 3. From the way the child envies the hawker, the gardener and the watchman, we can guess that there are many things the child has to do or must not do. Make a list of the do's and don'ts that the child doesn't like. The first line is done for you. Now we have to mark the do's and the don'ts. First one is done for us. The child must and the child must not. So the child must come home at a fixed time and the child must not get his clothes dirty in the dust. Now we have to give more examples. So we'll write, first we'll write the child must. So first one, go to bed when it gets dark. Right? Next, go to school every day. Few more you can write on your own. I am giving you these two. And the child must not, we can write get baked in the sun or get wet and walk on dark and lonely street at night. Right? So these two I have given you. You can write more pointers here for child must and child must not. Right? Now add to the list your own complaints about the things you have to do or must not do. You have to add on your own about your complaints, what you must do and you must not do, which you do not like, right? Like the child in the poem, you perhaps have your own wishes for yourself. Talk to your friend using I wish I were. As we have read in the poem, the child is wishing, I wish I were a hawker, I wish I were a gardener, I wish I was a watchman. So you have to talk about what you wish you were. When you see people around, you think that you were probably a painter or a carpenter if you have seen somebody working like that. So you can talk to your siblings or friends about the same, I wish I were, dash, 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 whatever you wish you were. Next is, find out the different kinds of work done by the people in your neighborhood. Make different cards for different kinds of work. You can make the card colorful with pictures of the persons doing the work. So you have to make small cards of the people you see while you go to the school. You have to see and you have to make cards according to the people you see in the roads, whoever you see. So once you make the cards, you can share it with the teacher. Alright kids, with this we come to the end. We'll come back with the next chapter soon again. Till then, take care. Goodbye.